I raised my niece like a daughter, paid for college, made her Halloween costumes, gave up everything. She left me off the wedding guest list, said to join in spirit. But when Jonah bailed, she remembered I existed. Some people spend their lives chasing freedom. I spent mine chasing stability for someone else. My name is Nadia. I'm 61 years old, living in a quiet corner of Idaho now, retired from the Forest Service. I used to work long shifts in ranger towers scattered across the mountains, surrounded by nothing but pines, wildlife, and radio static. Back then, the wilderness was the only place I found peace. But after my sister died, peace had to wait. Her name was Diane. I still remember the look on her face in the hospital bed, gaunt but fierce, as she gripped my hand and said, "Promise me you'll take care of Eliza." And I did, without hesitation. Eliza was only 5, all curls and questions and too much loss in those big eyes. I didn't have kids. Never even wanted them before that moment. But love doesn't always give you choices. Sometimes it gives you ultimatums. Raising Eliza wasn't easy. Not because of her, she was wonderful. Smart, stubborn, radiant in a way that made people want to know her. But I had to become everything. Mom, dad, aunt, disciplinarian, tutor, chauffeur. I transferred to a more remote ranger post because it paid better. I worked holidays, overnights, wildfire seasons with no days off. The forest became my second job. Eliza was the first. I remember making her Halloween costumes from thrift store scraps and watching her parade around the school gym like she was royalty. Or sitting in the parking lot of the community college at midnight, drinking lukewarm gas station coffee while she finished her evening classes. I never let her see how tired I was. When she got into UC Berkeley, I cried the whole drive home from the post office. She didn't even know I had a savings fund for her. Every bonus, every side job I picked up cataloging trail wildlife went to that account. Eliza deserved the world, and I was going to give her a corner of it. She blossomed into someone magnetic, confident, charismatic, one of those people who knew how to enter a room like it owed her something. And I watched it all like someone watching a rocket they built by hand disappear into the sky. Proud, yes, but also scared of how far she might go. For a long time, I believed nothing could shake what we had. Not the long hours, not the years of missed birthdays when I was stationed out in the backwoods, not even the fact that I wasn't her real parent. We had this unspoken connection. A history built out of soup cans, broken car ignitions, and late-night stories on the back porch. Then came Jonah. He was polished. A tech entrepreneur from California with a sharp smile and family money. The kind of man who introduced himself with a firm handshake and a LinkedIn profile. Eliza met him during some leadership seminar, and it didn't take long before her world started to revolve around his. I didn't think much of it at first. Young love, it happens. But slowly things shifted. Our Sunday phone calls got shorter. Texts became more formal, like I was a teacher she was reporting to, not the woman who raised her. Still, I told myself not to be dramatic. She was building her life. That's what I wanted for her, right? But something in my chest, a slow, cold thing, had started to take root. It whispered that maybe my chapter in her story was ending. And I didn't know how to stop it. Not yet. Proceed with scene. It started with a missed call. Just one on a Tuesday. I remember because I had made Eliza's favorite soup that night, chicken with wild rice, the kind I used to pack in thermoses for her during camping trips. I'd sent her a photo and a message, still make it better than anyone else. She didn't reply. Not that night. Not the next day either. At first, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. She was busy. Work. Life, Jonah. But then it became a pattern. Calls went unanswered, texts left unread. The casual updates about her job, her apartment, even her dog, all of it dried up. Instead, I saw her through curated Instagram posts, brunches on rooftops, winery weekends with Jonah's family, charity galas and gowns I never knew she owned. All smiling, all glowing, all without me. One afternoon, I finally called her out. "Hey kid," I said when she picked up. "You been dodging me, or just too fancy now for your old aunt?" She laughed, airy and thin. "Oh come on. You know I've just been slammed. Jonah's launch stuff is insane." I said. "Well, don't forget who taught you to budget your time." "Right. Of course not." But the call didn't last long. And after that, even though short chats got rarer, she stopped coming home for holidays. Once she said they were flying to Aspen with Jonah's parents. Another time it was an exclusive retreat in Santa Barbara she just couldn't miss. I spent Thanksgiving alone that year, watching reruns of Little House on the Prairie while the snow buried my truck outside. I tried to stay involved. I offered to visit, to send meals, to help her redecorate when she mentioned repainting the condo. She brushed it all aside with vague cheer. "Don't worry, Jonah's mom is helping me pick out stuff. Or you don't need to fly out here, it's all under control." Then one day, I heard something that hit me harder than all the silence combined. A friend of mine, Linda, a former fire dispatcher, called me after running into a mutual acquaintance of Eliza's at a baby shower. "You know," she said, voice cautious, "I heard Eliza just got promoted. They threw a little party for her with Jonah's family, out at that big restaurant on the pier." I said nothing, just stared at the fading light outside my kitchen window. "Were you not there?" Linda asked. "No," I replied softly. "I wasn't." She paused. "I thought maybe it was small. Intimate." It was. Just not small enough to include me. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, remembering all the times I'd clapped the loudest at her achievements. From middle school science fairs to her master's graduation, I'd always been front row, cheering, proud. Now I was somewhere in the cheap seats, or maybe not even in the stadium at all. And for the first time, I let the thought in, she's replacing me. Not out of cruelty, just convenience. Like I was a chapter she'd already finished reading. I found out about the wedding from Marcy Wilkinson. Marcy, of all people, a woman I hadn't seen in years, ran into me at the grocery store, halfway between the frozen peas and the rotisserie chicken. She greeted me with that small-town chirp, then dropped the bomb like it was casual weather talk. Can't believe Eliza's finally tying the knot. Jonah seems like such a catch. You must be so excited for the big day. I blinked. I'm sorry, what big day? Marcy tilted her head. The wedding, of course. She posted about it on Jonah's sister's page last week. Big vineyard affair out in Sonoma. I just assumed you'd be going being her mother figure and all. My stomach dropped, and for a second I couldn't tell if it was rage or grief rising first. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with my reading glasses slipping down my nose, scrolling through social media on the old laptop. Sure enough, there it was, photos of tastings, fittings, floral arrangements, comments filled with hearts and so excited, and you two are perfect. But not one word to me. Not a message. Not a call. Still, I told myself it had to be a mistake. Maybe they were waiting to surprise me. Maybe the invitation was late. 2 weeks later, a thin white envelope arrived. No return address. No note. Just an invitation with shiny gold foil lettering and the words, "Please join us in spirit." In spirit. I swallowed the lump in my throat and started sewing my own dress the next morning. Navy blue with a shawl collar and a satin belt. Classy but simple. I also crafted a keepsake box from old ranger patches and pressed wildflowers I'd collected with Eliza when she was 10. It had a small note inside. For all the trails you'll walk together, may they be kind. I didn't RSVP. I just showed up. The vineyard estate was sprawling and slick, rows of white chairs, twinkling lights, glass tables etched with names. I walked up to the entrance in my dress and modest heels, clutching the gift box like a lifeline. A man in a headset stopped me. Name, he asked. Nadia St. James. He scrolled through a tablet. Then again, his face stiffened. I'm sorry, ma'am. You're not on the guest list. I smiled, faint but steady. There must be a mistake. I raised the bride. He frowned, said something into his earpiece. A moment later, Eliza and Jonah appeared from a side path. Her dress was elegant. Her face was unreadable. Nadia, Jonah said with a tight smile. This was supposed to be intimate. We're keeping it very small. Eliza stood beside him, lips pressed tight, gaze locked somewhere just over my shoulder. She couldn't even look at me. I brought a gift, I said quietly. And I sewed this dress myself. Eliza blinked. Her eyes started to well up, but still she said nothing. Jonah stepped forward. We truly appreciate everything you've done. But today, it's just not the right setting. I nodded once. No tears. Not yet. I turned, walked back down the gravel path, heels crunching over stone, gift still in hand. My chest was hollow by the time I reached the truck. I sat there for a long time, not crying, just empty, like the forest after a fire. You know it'll grow back, but damn, it's scorched. That night, I placed the keepsake box on a shelf in my closet, somewhere out of sight. And for the first time, I didn't wait for a call. Didn't hope for an explanation. Because what do you do when the person you raised tells the world you don't exist? You believe them. 3 weeks passed. Not a word. No thank you, no apology, no explanation. The wedding photos made their rounds online, golden hour smiles, drone shots over the vineyard, Eliza in that pearl-beaded gown, arm in arm with Jonah, surrounded by his family like she'd always belonged there. Like I'd never been part of the picture. Then the phone rang. I almost didn't pick up, but the caller ID said Eliza. Just her name. Not a picture. That part, I deleted. Hey, she said, bright and casual, like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't been turned away from the biggest moment of her life like some distant cousin. Hi, I answered, flat as a stone. There was a pause. So, we're back. Iceland was amazing. You'd love it. We stayed in this eco-lodge surrounded by moss-covered lava fields and the air smelled like snow. Seriously, it was unreal. I let the silence stretch. If she noticed, she didn't say. But her tone shifted. Slower now. Calculating. So we, ran into a bit of a situation. A couple things were more expensive than we expected. Like the glacier tour was $300 more than quoted, and we missed a bus that cost us another night at the hotel. I waited. She cleared her throat. Anyway, we're a little over budget. I hate to ask, but could you help? Just something to float us until Jonah's next consulting payment clears. That was the moment I felt it. Something hard and final settle into my chest. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I just saw her. Finally, clearly, Eliza hadn't called to reconnect. She hadn't called because she missed me. She had called because she needed something. Again, how much? I asked. Oh, just about 800, but anything helps. I took a breath. You should probably ask Jonah's parents. Silence. Eliza. Well, yeah, I could, but they've helped a lot already, and come on, Nadia. It's just a little support. No, I said calmly. It's not. She sounded stunned. Excuse me. I kept my tone level. It's not just a little support. It's a pattern. One where you forget me when things are good, then remember me when the bill comes. That's not fair, she snapped. You're being petty. After everything you did for me, you're really going to hold this over my head now. Funny, I said. I thought I'd already been erased. Her breath caught, but I didn't give her the chance to respond. I can't help you, I said, voice quiet. Not this time. Not anymore. You're being cruel, she said. Ungrateful. No, I replied. I'm finally being honest. I hung up. My hand shook for a moment. Not from doubt, from release. Outside, the wind rustled the trees that lined the edge of my property. I watched the branches sway and thought, this is what it feels like to stop carrying someone. She hadn't called to say sorry. She'd called to ask for money. And this time, she got an answer she wasn't expecting. After that call, there was nothing but silence. And I didn't go chasing it. Still, I kept tabs. Not because I cared to reconnect, just because I wanted to see what happened when the safety net vanished. The honeymoon, once paraded across Instagram like a travel magazine spread, ended quietly. Photos stopped. Captions dried up. There were no more #couple goals updates from Iceland, no more reels of matching spa robes or champagne clinks against glacier backdrops. A week later, a former colleague of mine, Denise, who follows Eliza's social media like it's her job, sent me a message. You see this? Attached was a screenshot of Eliza's story. A tent, not a luxury yurt. A plain, nylon tent pitched beside a muddy river in what looked like Northern Europe. The caption read, making memories even when plans change. I sat back in my chair and stared at it for a long while. So the eco-lodge dream had become a camping trip. That explained the overspent honeymoon. I almost laughed. The next sign came a few days later, through Eliza's cousin Jenna, a sweet girl, too honest for her own good. She ran into Jonah at a networking mixer downtown, said he looked stressed, talked too fast, mentioned pivoting his startup, and taking a break from aggressive scaling, which if you've been around long enough you know means money trouble. It was all unraveling thread by thread. The glamorous couple who had once floated so effortlessly through every polished circle was coming down hard. The pictures became fewer. No more rooftop brunches, no more vineyard selfies, just the occasional recycled motivational quote or a throwback photo that looked more like wishful thinking than nostalgia. Jonah's posts went silent completely. His LinkedIn, once bloated with buzzwords and fake confidence, quietly changed his job title to freelance consultant. And Eliza, well, she stopped tagging anyone. Not her husband, not his family. One morning I noticed her profile photo had changed. It used to be a picture of her and Jonah smiling in front of a Tesla. Now it was just her, alone, wind blowing through her hair. Eyes turned away from the camera like she was trying to forget who she used to be. I didn't feel glee. Not really. What I felt was clarity. This wasn't revenge. This was a boundary. I watched their perfect image chip and crumble from a distance, and I didn't feel the urge to call, to fix, to say, I told you so. For the first time since I took Eliza in, I was no longer waiting for her to come home. Because home wasn't a place you built for someone who didn't want to live in it. It was a Friday afternoon when the phone rang again, but this time it wasn't Eliza. Hello, is this Nadia? The voice was crisp, measured, polite. But underneath there was a ripple of tension. Yes, I answered, already knowing. This is Patricia, Jonah's mother. I sat down slowly. Okay. She cleared her throat. I hope you don't mind me calling. I just thought, well, given the circumstances, maybe we could have a quick chat. I waited. I understand things have been strained lately between you and Eliza. And I know the wedding situation was, well, mishandled. She said that word like it had been a minor typo on a menu. But she continued, young couples sometimes overextend. Jonah and Eliza are in a bit of a tight spot, and we're doing all we can. However, I wondered if there was any chance you might be able to help them out with the mortgage, just until Jonah's next round of funding clears. The gall of it, the sheer, unblinking audacity. I stared out the window, watching the pine trees sway, letting her voice fill the silence like static. They've hit a few delays with Jonah's business, she added. And Eliza mentioned how supportive you've always been. That part stung a little. Not because it was true now, but because it used to be. I took a breath, slow and steady, and said the words as calmly as I could. I'm trying to avoid drama. There was a pause on her end. Not outrage. Not confusion. Just stunned silence. Ah, Patricia said finally. I see. No hard feelings, I added, echoing the same hollow kindness Jonah had used outside that vineyard. Of course, she said quickly, her tone retreating into something clipped and cold. Well, I suppose we'll manage. She hung up before I could say another word. I set the phone down and went back to the garden. My gloves were still damp from where I'd been trimming the rosemary bush, and a pair of bluebirds were dancing between the planters. The air smelled like soil and wood smoke, and somewhere in the distance, a deer kicked through dry leaves. Peace. Not the kind I used to chase. The kind I chose. The thing about cracks is, once they form, you start seeing them everywhere. Rumors started drifting back to me through odd channels. People who barely knew Eliza but still followed her life like it was a show with too many plot twists. A friend of mine, Cheryl, who works at a boutique cafe downtown, told me she overheard Eliza talking to someone in a booth near the window. Apparently she sounded agitated, whispering into her phone, voice trembling just loud enough to catch a sentence. Without my aunt, we're screwed. I didn't react when Cheryl told me. Not really. Just stirred the creamer into my coffee and nodded. But something about that sentence sat in my ribs like a cold stone. A week later, I drove past a consignment store near the old strip mall. A matte black Audi, a model I remember Jonah flaunting at family dinners, was parked out front, its tires clean, windows polished. A for sale sign rested behind the windshield. I didn't need to ask. I knew. Another week, another breadcrumb. Jonah's startup website quietly disappeared. The domain went to a generic, under construction page. His LinkedIn updates stopped entirely. Eliza, once a near-daily poster, now shared nothing but reposted affirmations and vague captions about growth through struggle. And their house? Listed. The same modern townhouse they'd raved about, big kitchen, wraparound balcony, close to downtown. Suddenly showed up on Zillow. Price reduced, it said in bold red letters. Photos still staged with expensive furniture, but anyone looking closely could see the desperation. I didn't reach out. I didn't gloat. I just watched it all fall apart quietly, like a tree finally giving way after standing hollow for years. Then came the final sign. Eliza started appearing alone. No more double selfies. No photos of matching mugs or his and hers hiking boots. Just shots of her at cafes or standing in front of art walls, smile thinner, eyes glassy. Jonah? Nowhere. I bumped into an old coworker of hers at the grocery store. She'd heard through the grapevine that Jonah was spending more time in the Bay Area and talking to investors solo now. Code for their splitting up, even if no one wanted to say it out loud yet. I didn't feel satisfied. I didn't even feel angry anymore. Just done. For years I carried Eliza, through scraped knees, final exams, breakups, dreams, and detours. And in the end, she traded me for something shinier. Now the shine was wearing off, and all that was left was the reflection she'd been avoiding. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. The call came just after sundown. I was on the porch, watching the last bit of light disappear behind the tree line when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. Some part of me already knew. "Hi," came the voice, small, thin, cracking around the edges. "Eliza." She didn't say anything right away. I could hear her breathing, soft and shaky. Then quietly, "Can we talk? Please." I didn't say yes, but I didn't hang up either. We met at a local diner the next afternoon. Not the kind of place she usually liked, no marble countertops, no latte art, just chipped mugs and a waitress named Sue who'd been pouring coffee since I was in college. Eliza looked different. Not broken, not exactly. Just unglossed. Her hair was pulled back in a limp ponytail, and her coat, designer, but wrinkled, hung off her like she'd lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. She slid into the booth slowly as if every motion took effort. "Thanks for meeting me," she mumbled, eyes on the menu she wasn't reading. I nodded, said nothing. For a long time, she just sat there, fidgeting with the sugar packet. Then finally she looked up. Jonah left, took what was left of the savings and moved out last week. I didn't flinch. I think she wanted me to. I can't keep up with the rent. I've been applying to jobs, but it's been hard. Another pause. I wouldn't be here if I had another choice. There it was. "No, I'm sorry. No, I miss you. Just a direct flight to I need something." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I didn't touch it. Didn't need to. "It's just a loan. I'd pay you back. I swear. I'm good for it." "Eliza," I said, voice calm, steady. "Look at me." She hesitated, then did. Her eyes were red, not just tired, not just embarrassed. "Empty." "I didn't come here to give you money," I said. "I came here because you asked, and I wanted to see if there was anything left of the girl I raised." Tears welled up. She blinked fast, then pressed her hand over her mouth, shoulders shaking. "I'm sorry," she whispered. She broke down. Right there in the booth in front of Sue in the stale pie display. But when the crying stopped, when she looked up again, there was something still missing. Something real. "You came here to ask," I said gently. "Not to apologize. Not to reconnect. You're not sorry. You're just scared." "That's not fair," she snapped, though her voice was weak. "It's not," I said. "You taught me what kind of love not to give anymore." She stared at me, confused. "The kind that empties you," I said. "The kind that waits on the porch year after year, hoping someone will come home." I stood up, left the paper untouched on the table, and without a goodbye, I walked out the door. Unmoved. Time passed. And like most things that fall apart, the noise faded first. I stopped checking her social media. I stopped wondering if I'd run into her downtown or hear about her in someone else's conversation. Whatever part of me had still been listening for her name, like an echo I couldn't quiet, finally went still. It was a neighbor who told me Eliza had moved. Apparently, she'd left the condo after months of unpaid rent and taken a room in a shared apartment closer to the bus line. One of those listings with 4 strangers and a cat nobody claims, the neighbor said with a half smile. Tough break, I guess. She worked in customer service now, a call center for a dental chain. 9-hour shifts and mandatory headset etiquette. Not the glamorous job titles she used to brag about, but it was work. Honest work. As for Jonah, he landed on his feet. Or rather, someone else's. Got engaged to a venture capitalist with connections and money to burn. They were on vacation in Santorini when I saw their engagement photo floating around online. All white linen and sparkling wine. His smile looked more relaxed this time, like he traded up and knew it. I didn't feel sorry for her anymore. Not angry, not bitter. just distant, and that distance gave me room to grow again. I joined a nature retreat program a few counties over, a little group that taught hiking skills and environmental awareness to teens who needed somewhere safe to be. Kids who didn't fit anywhere else. Troubled, loud, skeptical. My kind of kids. Every Wednesday and Saturday I took them into the foothills, taught them how to read trails and build fires. One girl, Kaylee, reminded me of Eliza when she was 10, sharp-tongued, smart as hell, too tough for her own good. I took her under my wing. I didn't talk about the past. I didn't tell the kids who I had been to someone else. I just showed up with granola bars, worn hiking boots, and maps folded with precision. That spring, I cleaned out my storage room, found an old shoebox full of pictures, Eliza in her kindergarten jacket, her blowing out candles at 13, our selfie at her college graduation, her arms wrapped around me, cheeks pressed together. I sat with that one the longest. Then I built a fire in the backyard. Nothing dramatic, no speeches, just me, the pine-scented dusk, and the quiet. I slid the photo into the flames and watched it curl, and in its place something loosened. Not hate, not grief, just space. By summer, my days were full again, trail logs, packed lunches, kids laughing at my old ranger stories. One of them, a boy named Andre, said, "You're like the cool aunt I never had." And I just smiled, because for once that didn't sting. I had loved Eliza like a daughter. I gave her everything I had. But love without respect turns into rot, and I was done letting it take root. That chapter was closed, burned, buried, released, and in its place, peace.